Yes, hello and welcome everybody. It's Chris here from the Ministry of Dice, and I'm back again today with another one of my little videos. It's not a little video presentation today, I'm going to do a bit of show and tell. Ooh, how exciting. It's a very proud moment for me actually, because pending a few trades arriving in the post, I have now finally finished my collection of Organised Play Kits. Yay! Woo! Give us a round of applause. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yes, I've been trading and hustling across the community for a number of years now in an attempt to complete this set, and once those last few envelopes land on my doormat, then I am going to be done. I will have all the Organised Play Kits that Wizkids have ever printed and distributed to date, so I'm very, very pleased. But as I was doing some trades recently around the old social medias, I noticed a couple of newer players were hanging around saying, what are you talking about? What's this card? I've never heard of that card, or where's that one come from? And questions such like. So I thought what might be quite fun is if I kick off a bit of a maxi series, really, where I take a look at these cards, do a bit of Organised Play Kit retrospective, if you will, and talk a little bit about the cards that were available in these promo sets so that newer players can take a look at some of those from years gone by. And also what I'd like to do is talk a little bit about the comic book lore that surrounds these Organised Play Kits. And so I'm going to do quite a few episodes, hopefully, if it proves popular, talking about kind of comic booky stuff, talking about characters, and showing off the cards, showing off the promos that some people may never have seen. So that's the plan. I hope you're into that. And, actually, I should say, while I think about it, so Organised Play Kits, if you're not familiar, Wizkids publish Organised Play Kits, little collections of promo cards. They're often alt art, or many times they come with new game texts, and the intention was, and continues to be, little packs that can be awarded by stores at local level events. So they come in these little white envelopes, and you'll have some participation-related cards, and then there's cards available for the top spots as well, the first and second player. So some of these have been quite hard to pin down because some of the sets weren't distributed widely, and some of the cards I was searching for were only awarded to the top players at those local level events, so that there was a limited number of them out there. I also should point out that this series is going to focus on Organised Play Kits only. I'm not going to take a look at alt arts or foil cards that were promos awarded at major events. I'm just looking at the local level Organised Play Kits. So there you go. That's my plans and intentions. Spoiler alert as well, I should say that. As I go along, I'm going to talk about comic book lore and why some of these characters were chosen and why they're significant to the storyline that the OP kit is referencing. So if you've not read the particular storyline and are interested in reading the storyline, don't want any spoilers, then I suggest you stop now. However, if you're not too bothered or you're interested in understanding more about the lore around these characters, then please do carry on. And today's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get started with the very first Organised Play Kit, the Avengers Vs X-Men storyline. So the Avengers Vs X-Men storyline then, it was a massive Marvel crossover event back in 2012 with a central series, 12-issue series that ran through the middle of it called Avengers Vs X-Men. There was 2 issues published a month over a 6-month period. I think it kicked off mid-year, so it kind of took us to the end of the year at the time. That it was a collaborative effort across a number of the big name, top title writers and artists that were working with Marvel at the time. People like Brian Michael Bendis, Jeff Loeb, Jason Aaron wrote a few issues, Ed Brubaker, Jonathan Hickman, Matt Fraction wrote a few issues, and some of the artists involved, some of the pencilers. You've got Aaron Kuber, Frank Cho, controversial figure really, but Frank Cho, John Romita Jr., very well known for his work on the Hit Girl stuff. And so it had this central story running through the middle, but because it was a crossover event, there were loads of titles, all with little sort of tie-ins as well that wrapped into the storyline. And really, it's not a new thing. The Avengers vs X-Men has been a kind of revisited style storyline in the Marvel Universe for decades. They come to loggerheads all the time. But this particular one was sold as a big old maxi series. There was tons of variant art covers available, and has loads of tie-ins, like I say, from other titles, and the central characters really were one of the main drive. Well, I say central characters actually. I was going to say the central characters were the main driving force of the very first Avengers vs X-Men Dice Masters set, but interestingly enough, there's some very key characters that didn't turn up until later on in the game, which I'll talk about a little bit later on. And the storyline event, the OP kit, was across six packs, as it were. So a local store would be expected to run 6 events over a kind of 6 monthly period, and you had the cards broken down into these 6 packs to be awarded at those events, and here they all are. So we've got the Phoenix Force, Cyclops, Iron Man, Colossus, Wolverine, Spider-Man, Thor, and then some basic actions: takedown, teamwork, rally, deflection, collateral damage, and teleport. So there you go. There's the little kind of ins and outs intro. Right, let's take a close look at the cards themselves, shall we? Okay, well, I'm gonna start at the end, actually. I'm going to start with this one here, the Phoenix Force, Force of Nature. It's a 10-cost card. They had a Phoenix Force affiliation that was specific to this Organised Play series. This was number 13 and was awarded in the last set, the 6th set there. It was a particularly interesting collector's item because, as you can see, it came with its own unique dice, and it's a max die 1 to match the fact that you got awarded a dice along with your card. So it was a very prestigious and much sought after card at that point. It's got a really fascinating game text. While Phoenix Force is active, each of your opponent's characters deal no more than 1 damage to you while attacking. So a great defensive piece if you can ramp up to the 10 for it, I suppose. And nice beefy Phoenix Force stats. Now, in terms of the comic book lore, the Phoenix Force is actually the central driving force behind the narrative as well. The Phoenix Force is a large cosmic entity feared across the universe in the Marvel lore. It's been long tied to the X-Men characters. There was the Dark Phoenix saga from back in the 70s, where it seeks these kind of powerful individuals to possess and take control of. And then I think the quote is it wants to burn the obsolete. So burn the obsolete down and kind of reinvigorate. It has the power to destroy whole planets, so it's rightfully feared. Even Galactus has got a few things to say about the Phoenix Force. And little teenage Nova, he's out and about doing his Nova Space Corps policing thing and discovers that the Phoenix Force is heading to Earth because it can sense that there is a new power on Earth that it wants to possess and take over, and this is the character Hope Summers. Now, as I mentioned before, it's really interesting that because she is the central character of the whole Avengers vs X-Men narrative, and yet she hasn't appeared in the game until much later on. But the Phoenix Force is travelling to Earth to possess Hope and do its, burn down destructo thing, and so everyone is all a little bit on edge. And it's identified by the X-Men that the Phoenix Force is coming, and it's identified by the Avengers that the Phoenix Force is coming. And this is where the main tension of the book that causes the antagonism comes from, because Cyclops, who is leading the X-Men at the time, they've had a particularly tough time of it because there's only 198 mutants left on Earth. There's basically been a kind of I can't even, that's another video for another time, I think, but there's a very limited number. Hope was one of the new mutants that were born following that particular crisis, and he believes that if the Phoenix Force does come to Earth and take control of Hope, that will be some ultimate power placed in the hand of mutants that will put them back on top and give them a fighting chance against all the challenges that they're facing at the time. The Avengers, however, fear the Phoenix Force. They're worried about the potential for destruction that it has, and rightly so. It's not got a very good reputation, the Phoenix Force, and it's been seen to do some really nasty things in the past, and they want to go and take Hope and tuck her away somewhere, or even to the extent where they may choose to kill her before the Phoenix Force can possess her. So Nova arrives, he lets the Avengers know, the X-Men realise that it's on its way too, and the main tension between the two forces is that the X-Men want to harness the power of the Phoenix Force through Hope to put mutants back on top, and the Avengers want to defeat it, stop it in its tracks, so that any potential for destruction doesn't happen. And there you go, there's the Phoenix Force. So, with this new information in the comic book, Captain America, with a force of Avengers, heads on over to Utopia Island, where the mutant community is living, or some part of the mutant community. I'll talk about Wolverine and his lot in a minute. And they go to take Hope away. And Cyclops says, no way, man. Piss off, Cap. This is mutant business. We don't want none of your interference. Get off my island. Leave us alone. We're going to let the Phoenix Force come along, possess Hope, and then you'll all be frightened of us, and you can all get back in your box and give mutants the respect that they finally deserve. And because it's a comic book, and that's the way comic books goes, this leads to a big old ruck between the Avengers and the X-Men. And these rucks carry on then throughout the whole series, where they encounter each other many, many times. And the basic actions that were available throughout the sets describe the fighting, the combat that was taking place between the two forces. One thing that's particularly interesting about the set, I love this, is you can see the teamwork and rally basic action artwork are tied together. These were two covers for issues, and they've taken that went together as comic book issues, and they've mirrored them in the cards there, so you can see the X-Men on the teamwork side and the Avengers on the rally side, with Cyclops' eye blast hitting Captain America's shield. So teamwork, rally, deflection, they're all in relation to the kind of combat element that was taking place, the Avengers fighting the X-Men, and there were many battles that took place throughout the course of the series, because at that point then, Hope goes on the run. She legs it. She doesn't want any part of Cyclops' plan. She just thinks he's turned into some megalomaniac lunatic, but she doesn't really want to go with the Avengers either, because there's a trust issue, and so she's going to try and find a way to solve the problem for herself. So she goes on the run, and so the X-Men and the Avengers, as they hunt the planet trying to track down Hope, encounter each other and get into it many, many times over. And this is where collateral damage and teleport come in. Teleport, as a card, is reflective of Illyana Rasputin, otherwise known as Magic, her ability to use these portals to teleport the X-Men around the planet. And collateral damage, as you can see there, is the Iron Man feeling a bit kind of defeated, because this whole battle is taking its toll, not just on the two teams, the X-Men and the Avengers, but on all the people who are getting caught in the crossfire, such as civilians, as they're fighting. And deflection, is obviously Captain America there, bouncing back an optic blast from Cyclops. So the basic actions there, they were super useful as well. Some of these were really cool basic actions. Over time, power creep has meant that a few of these aren't quite as exciting as they used to be, because the costings are a bit different and what have you. But the artwork is great. I mean, that deflection looks awesome with Captain America there, and directly ties into the kind of the really heavy combat element that the comic book storyline had tied into it too. So there were a number of character cards that came in the kits. Here is a selection of them across the sets. We've got Wolverine walking his own path here. He's an interesting one. The subtitle is very much tied into the lore of the AVX narrative, because I mentioned before about Hope doing one, legging it, and looking to find her own solution, and she seeks out Wolverine because he is really the only one ready, willing, and able to end her life as a solution there. And she says to him, you're going to have to take care of business. If this Phoenix Force comes and takes control of me, I don't think I'm strong enough to handle it, so you're going to have to end me, And Wolverine says, right, well, if that's what's got to be done, that's what's got to be done. I'm the best at what I do. And Wolverine, of course, his decision here is based on his experience of the Phoenix in the past and what happened with Jean Grey and what he had to do with Jean Grey there. But he's called walking his own path because he is currently separated from the rest of the mutants. The mutant community is divided into two, and while Cyclops has got his little band of merry mutants hanging out on Utopia Island, Wolverine, through his differences with Cyclops and his different views and outlook as to how mutants should proceed, has set up the Jean Grey School for Mutants. He wants to carry on the kind of Xavier's vision where there's a safe educational place for mutants to live, whereas Cyclops has clearly taken a much more kind of combative, aggressive kind of point of view there. So that's the Wolverine walking his own path. His game text, I'm not sure really reflects, in fact none of these three, their game text particularly reflects their contribution to the storyline there. Wolverine's game text says, when Wolverine attacks alone, double your life. This effect cannot raise your life to a value higher than 10. I suppose in a way it's kind of reflective of the fact that he's the last ditch attempt. It's something you can do when things are getting desperate, just to give yourself a second wind in the game. Thor here, Thor the Mighty, he's an interesting one. I love this artwork. This was one from one of the variant covers. So as the Phoenix Force is approaching Earth's orbit, Thor takes a team of Avengers out into space with the view of trying to stop it or at least slow it down. And this is what the image is depicting here, where he's facing off against the Phoenix Force out in space. His game text reads, when fielded, you may knock out an opposing fist character and gain life equal to its level. I can't really see how that connects to the events in the storyline, because the Phoenix Force basically just runs them all through and carries on. even a Norse god like Thor couldn't stop them. The Iron Man Phoenix Buster is an interesting card. This plays a very important part in the storyline and kind of shifts it into the next act of the narrative there. Iron Man and Ant-Man, using their big scientific brains, go away and start to develop a weapon, the Phoenix Buster, designed to stop the Phoenix Force. And this is what we see on the card here, is the Phoenix Buster. And as the Phoenix Force starts coming to its final moments of taking control of Hope, in fact, she's like on the floor, just burning up with the power and the flames as the Phoenix Force starts to take control. He blasts the Phoenix with the Phoenix Buster energy weapon, but it doesn't have the desired effect. Rather than stopping the Phoenix Force, it shatters it into 5 pieces, and the Phoenix Force decides to possess 5 of the X-Men characters instead. And it takes over Cyclops, the White Queen, Colossus, Illyana Rasputin, Magic, and Namor. So at that point then, the storyline shifts and starts to focus on what has often been referred to as the Phoenix Five. And rather than taking control of Hope, the Phoenix Force then, in its 5 smaller pieces, take control of 5 of the X-Men characters. See, I told you Hope was, a really central character. And she doesn't have any part to play in the AVX set or in this OP kit set. Interesting. So, the Phoenix Five then, and there are only 2 characters that reflect the Phoenix Five in the set. We've got Colossus here, the Phoenix Force, and Cyclops, the Phoenix Force, and they're both carrying the Phoenix Force affiliation that I mentioned was on the Phoenix earlier. I think this was a practical reason because the other members of the Phoenix Five, Namor, Magic, and the White Queen, didn't actually have cards and dice at that point. They didn't turn up until the Uncanny X-Men. Oh, wait a minute. Maybe, was Namor in the first set? No, he was... Well, someone let me know in the comments below. I've got a bit muddled in my head. I can't remember whether Namor was an AVX character or a UXM character. I'm leaning on the side of a UXM character because he obviously doesn't appear here in the set. And so these are the Phoenix Force cards. So 2 of the 5 had cards in the kits. Colossus here is an 8-cost fist. His game text reads, while Colossus is active, knock out the non-sidekick character with the lowest cost at the end of each of your turns. You break ties. So that's really interesting. And it's got the global on here. It says once per turn, pay double fist, double the attack and defense of one of your Phoenix Force dice in the field. So that's really crazy. In fact, there was a proper kind of surprise hit, bit of a little meta team, which was a Colossus Phoenix Force team at one point. So do a bit of Googling and investigate that because it was really interesting. And then we've got the Cyclops Phoenix Force, 8 cost again. He reads, when Cyclops is blocked, your opponent must immediately knock out one of his other characters if able, and he carries the same global as well. Oh no, sorry. Pay 2 fist on your turn. Move a Phoenix Force die from your used pile to the field at its lowest level. And he's got the standard. They've both got the standard dice there. So initially, the Phoenix Force, when the 5 of them get this almighty power, they start to use it for good. They start to correct some of the ills in the world and start making their way around, contributing to some of the challenges that the human race is facing in an effort to change the view of mutants and to a bit of PR, a bit of decent PR for them. But of course, as the Phoenix Force takes a deeper hold, it starts to manipulate and affect the way they see things, and they become increasingly more evil and more aggressive in the way that they approach things. And there are a few key moments in the storyline at this point. Namor, for example, attacks Wakanda with his almighty kind of water powery things. Colossus and Magic start to see things very, very different as brother and sister and start to fall out, and I'll talk about a fundamental moment in the storyline there. And the White Queen, because of her almighty telepathic powers, starts turning into a bit of an avenging angel and starts just randomly murdering people based on dark events from their past, which some would argue they deserve, but let's not get into the politics of that. So the Phoenix Five, very important part of the storyline, and we've got 2 cards here in the set that reflect that element of the narrative. Okay, well, a couple of other kind of central characters that don't appear in the AVX set, nor do they appear in the OP kits, are the Iron Fist and Scarlet Witch. And Scarlet Witch specifically has the power to defeat the Phoenix Force. That gets discovered and figured out. And so what they realize is that if they kind of slowly but surely eliminate the Phoenix Five, they can gather all the power in one of the X-Men and use Scarlet Witch's abilities to defeat the Phoenix Force once and for all and cast it back into the universe and off Earth, and it's no longer a threat. So during one battle, specifically with Colossus and Magic, Spider-Man here throws himself into the fight, and buys time for the rest of the Avengers to escape. But what he also does is he very intelligently uses some manipulative kind of mind games to force Colossus and Magic to end up fighting each other and then ultimately putting the power back into Colossus. Namor gets defeated at Wakanda, and the White Queen gets defeated by Cyclops himself, because again, as the Phoenix Force starts to take control and manipulate their thoughts, they start to get more suspicious and jealous of one another, and they start to crave power more and more. And so Spider-Man the Amazing, he's called Spider-Man the Amazing because he took some, as you can see in the picture there, he took some pretty harsh beating from Colossus and Magic, but when it came down to it, Colossus wouldn't let Magic kill him because he still maintained some of his kind of moral heart, and Spider-Man allowed the Avengers to escape unscathed. And his game text reflects this as well. When Spider-Man attacks, you may pay 3 fists to make your opponent lose half his life, rounded down. So kind of his game text reflecting the turning point there, where the Phoenix Five start to lose control, they start to lose their upper hand, and it shifts more towards the Avengers. So Spider-Man the Amazing, and that amazing artwork, that outstanding artwork there, again, is one of the variant covers from the series. And then here we go, we have Takedown. So the 4 of the Phoenix Five lose their powers and the Phoenix Force starts to congregate solely in Cyclops. But as I said before, the Avengers have figured out that Scarlet Witch's almighty kind of powers, her reality warping psychic stuff, is able to defeat the Phoenix Force. And so in the massive culmination, the big battle at the end, Scarlet Witch and Hope in tandem as the kind of 2 key characters, using information provided by the Iron Fist, because the Kunlun mystical people have got some answers as well as to how to defeat the Phoenix Force. Go away and read it if you want the detail on that. Are then able to take down Cyclops, and there you can see in the picture is the final moment. Cyclops, also pretty dark piece of X-Men history here, because Cyclops, as the power overwhelms him with the Phoenix Force and starts to take control and make him more evil and more diabolical, murders Professor X in that final battle, as well as Professor X tries to just kind of talk him down off the ledge one last time. So they step in, they use Scarlet Witch and Hope's abilities to defeat the Phoenix Force, and they take down Cyclops to bring the battle to a conclusion, and the Phoenix Force disappears once again into outer space, to return later when, the Jean Grey from the past, who's brought forward in history by Beast using a time machine, attracts it once again, which is a whole other thing, a whole other X-Men thing. The game text to Takedown as well, kind of reflective of this moment in the story too. Deal 2 damage to a non-shield character. If it's a villain, deal 4 damage to it instead. Which, interestingly enough, is just about enough to take down Cyclops. He says, reaching across the screen to check the card to make sure his facts were correct. It's also got a global on here. Pay a mask. Target character gains the villain affiliation till the end of the turn. So Takedown, very popular to use that global for a variety of combos. Well, there we are then, folks. There's my little OP kit retrospective, taking a look at the Avengers Vs X-Men Organised Play Kits that were given away many years ago. I hope if you're a new player, you enjoy taking a look at those older cards and getting familiar with some of the stuff that you may not have ever seen. If you are a long-standing player, maybe you've enjoyed just some of the insights into the comic book narrative and the comic book lore that gave. I'd really be interested in knowing your feedback. If this is something that you enjoyed and you'd like me to carry on, then I'll work my way through all the OP kits. As I say, I've completed the set set finally. Yes! So please do drop a comment in the comments below and give me a heads up. Let me know if this is the sort of thing you want me to carry on doing. In the meantime, on the right hand side of the screen, there's a couple of videos that the Magic YouTube computer thinks that you might enjoy. So if you've got the time, check one of those out. And I'll catch you on a podcast, on a blog site, or in another video sometime soon. Ta-ra now, folks.